I didn't know Laura Jane very well, but I had conversations with her at various IATEFL conferences, and I think perhaps the best tribute that we can pay to her today is to carry on to do this event. I'm sure she wouldn't have wanted it any other way than the event to continue as was planned. So, with heavy hearts, let's move forwards and let's move into the event. So, I'd very much like to thank the organisers for the work they've done. I've been involved myself in organising events, and I know just how much work goes on behind the scenes that people never see. And this looks excellent, I must say. Thanks, of course, to the speakers and panel members for their contributions. And maybe above all to the audience for giving up their time for coming along. I mean, it's at IATEFL we do appreciate that with all our events, whether they're webinars, talks, whatever we do, we are taking your time, and we hope that. Well, I'm sure today you will, and for the next 2 days you will you'll really enjoy yourselves. But we do appreciate that you're coming along. Basically, I've had a look at some of the talks, the keynotes, and sort of spotted some key words that I wrote down. We've got preparing learners for the world ahead, inclusive classrooms, socially sustainable societies, trauma-informed practices, global citizenship, volunteering, and my favorite title, Two Countries, One Vision, the serendipity of collaboration. That sounds like it should be a novel, doesn't it? Teaching the spectrum, diverse minds, making English a language of connection, not exclusion. And another one, last but not lost. I see what you did there. Engaging teenagers and preteens with environmental awareness. That's really good stuff. It really is an exciting selection of topics and themes that we've got there. And if I had to use an adjective to describe them all, it would begin with I, and it would be innovative. I think we've always needed innovation in ELT, but I have a feeling that we need it more than ever just at the moment. In my role as president, I get to meet a lot of our stakeholders, publishers, university people, teacher educators, teachers, school directors, assessment folk, a whole bunch of different people all around the world as I travel and talk to people on behalf of IATEFL. And there are some messages that I'm getting that are fairly becoming quite common, that we're moving into, or perhaps we're already in quite a challenging phase. Challenges and opportunities are often, two sides of one coin, aren't they? But I think there are some challenges, and that's why I'm so thrilled to see these innovative talks ready to engage with these challenges. I mean, I think one of them, of course, is AI. We're still trying to figure it out. At least I'm still trying to figure it out, and I don't think I'm alone. It's certainly going to transform the way students learn, and I think also their relationship with information and knowledge. But I think also we need to think about adapting or changing what we think are acceptable outputs from learners, particularly written work. To what extent are we happy in the knowledge that a piece of writing that a 12-year-old, 14-year-old gives you was at least part written by AI? Is that acceptable? Is that okay? What do we do? How do we deal with it? I don't think we know yet. I mean, at IATEFL, we're working at the moment on an AI policy. I'm working with Dorothy Zimak on the Publishing Committee on an AI policy. And boy, it's complicated. What is acceptable, what isn't, what are the rules? If there are rules, how can we enforce them? So I think that's something we need to think about. What is an acceptable piece of writing, with the knowledge that they almost certainly used AI, or we think they did. And if we think they did, how do we find out whether they did other than asking them? So it's something to think about. Another kind of challenge or opportunity, I think, is around Generation Alpha and Gen Z, those two sort of generations who probably most of us are teaching collectively. For me, it seems particularly the Gen Zs, but I think it's happening with the Gen Alphas as well. Their view of English is probably that it's just there, like their arms and legs. It's just a thing that they have. And I think that the reason for that, obviously, is exposure to whether it's Netflix, TikTok on the media side, whether it's just from walking down the high street and seeing brands and names in English. I mean, I spent some time in China in the summer, and coffee shop, factory store, clothes shop, all written in English. So all this immersion in English, I think, is certainly making that generation potentially more competent English users, combined with the fact, I think in many cases, government schools around the world, primary schools particularly, are doing a better job than perhaps they were 10 or 15 years ago. So those of us that work in CPD with government school teachers, as I do, there is even a possibility that work we're doing actually works and is helping people. So we've got these students heading into high school or even into primary school with higher levels of English before, and perhaps higher levels of confidence about English. And that's not a bad thing at all to have that confidence. To what extent it is a not a false confidence, an excessive confidence is something to think about. Because they're fluent in TikTok, because they're fluent in gaming English, they might have the sense that their English is okay. I don't need any more of this because I'm okay because I'm Brazilian, I chat with my friends in Japan, I'm Chinese, I chat with my friends in France. I'm okay with English. So that's something we might need to think about. And we've got to decide how to satisfy those students, how to please them, because their view of English is probably not necessarily, or of competence in English, is not necessarily the same as ours, I think. They're very English savvy, but we do need to think about what we can offer them. And that's not so easy, I don't think, at the moment. Another challenge, I suppose, or something that we need to think about is that sadly, the world is closing up. We see countries around the world closing their borders, closing their doors. Um, I don't know whether the days of massive student mobility are going to disappear, but I think they're certainly going to reduce. They already are reducing. One reason that student mobility is reducing because many countries feel, particularly at university level, that their domestic provision, what they do in universities in their own country, is as good as they might get in another country. So why offer all these scholarships to send people all over the world? So I think we need to think about that. Of course, in the UK, we have our own goal of Brexit. Don't get me started on that. That is dramatically affecting student numbers here. But I have a feeling that we're going to have a reduction in student mobility, um, which is a great pity on one side, because I think the idea that be they teenagers, be they even younger students, be they adults, the opportunity to study abroad, even for a short period of time, is something that can actually change you and something that sits with you for a lifetime. But I think it will reduce almost certainly. But I suppose if we had to look for a benefit, something good out of reduction in study abroad, it probably would be a sustainability argument that we have fewer people flying around the world, basically. So there maybe is a benefit there, an environmental benefit, reducing the impact of our global ELT community on climate. Um, and talking of sustainability, and people get bored with me talking about it all the time because I do. In ELT, we're certainly beginning to engage with climate related issues. And many of you here, I'm sure, will have, even with the very smallest primary children, will have started to talk a wee bit about the climate, about the environment, about whether it's just at a basic level of making sure we switch the lights off, we don't waste paper, this kind of stuff. All this is going on in ELT. I'm very confident that we're getting to grips with that step by step. More work to do. But I think what we really need to do now is engage with broader sustainability. Some of you will be familiar with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and if you spend time looking on their website, you will find that all of human life is there. Really, all aspects of our life: education, healthcare, equality, decent jobs. Water, all different aspects of our life are there. And I think that's something that we need to engage with more and more. I'm not saying the work we do on climate, we should, of course, we should be doing that, but it's not enough. And I'm increasingly saying, let's look at broader sustainability. Things, as I say, things like gender equality, good workplaces, uh, education quality. These are all things that will impact on young learners and teenagers as they move forwards in life. And I think we also need to be careful of not falling into the trap of thinking that Gen Alphas and Gen Zs are really passionate about these things. I don't think they are. We think they are, but I don't think they're that passionate. They're not all Greta Thunberg. So I think we need to increasingly think of ways of motivating and engaging younger learners and teenagers with sustainability issues. And that's going to be a challenge. The final challenge that I want to talk about, unfortunately, is global conflicts. I mean, I've got two boys in their 20s. I never thought that I would be bringing my kids up in a world with so much violence and so much dreadful stuff happening around the world. Some of you may be in areas where there are conflicts or have been. My professional specialism, one of them at least, is working in conflict zones or post-conflict zones with traumatized teachers, particularly. Some of you may have first-hand experience of this, but I think wherever we are on this, we need to inform ourselves more about the impact of global conflicts on our teachers and on members of our teaching community. One of the things we're doing with IATEFL, we're setting up still in the early days, an initiative called Teaching and Learning in Challenging Circumstances, covers conflicts and similar events. We're doing two things. IATEFL Voices, if you're a member, is the journal that you receive every couple of months. There will be a special coming out around about May next year, which will have a focus specifically on conflicts. And we are asking teachers and other practitioners who have experience of working with traumatized students or are themselves traumatized or have experience of these areas to contribute, and that's being published. It's not too late necessarily to get something published. So if any of you do have something around that theme that you're interested in and maybe like to contribute, the quickest thing is to write to me. I'm chris@iatefl.org. I'm very easy to find, and I will pass it on to the editor. We're getting close to the deadline, I think, but there may still be space for other things. We also, and I was working on this last night actually, are setting up a resource bank of resources for teachers who teach in conflict areas on one side, but also people who teach students who've moved out of conflict areas, basically refugees, people in the ESOL community in the UK and other countries, who are dealing with students who are themselves traumatized, and also those working with traumatized teachers. So that initiative is happening. We're just starting to build the database. The website is already there, but there's very little on it at the moment. But that will be launched next year. That's pretty much all I wanted to say, really, because you've got more interesting things to move on to. And I've got to run off and chair a board meeting. You'll find out what we've been up to in these board meetings at the AGM in Brighton next year. I hope some of you will be able to come to the conference next year and join us in the sunny south coast of the UK. Another thing for those of you who are members, you will be aware that we are holding elections at the moment for a vice president who will succeed me, will follow behind me, and also for a treasurer. It's too late to stand if you wanted to do that. You've missed the boat on that, but do please vote. It's tremendously important. Who you vote for is entirely up to you. It is tremendously important to us as a membership organisation that our members do vote. And as someone who's been through the election process himself, it's kind of nice to know that people want to engage with that. So do vote. We've got some interesting candidates. I know who they are. They're not yet in the public domain yet, but that is important. And Elizabeth has just reminded us in the box that thank you to Express Publishing. I'm quite sure George was something to do with this. George Kokolas is a friend and a colleague of mine, and I do realise that Express do a lot, not just for this thing, but for IATEFL in general. We do appreciate the support from them and indeed from all the other sponsors that we have. In the meantime, if you have anything you want to talk about with me, you'll find me at chris@iatefl.org. I'm reasonably efficient in answering emails, or if you can't remember my name, just put president@iatefl.org